Okay, I think we should be all up and running at this point. That all looks okay, that looks good. Okay, well, that's good. So I see the notification went out. That's something. Hey, Kami, how you doing? Alrighty, okay. So, the plan is to try to get through chapter 70 today. Well, try to get through chapter 70 right now, and then maybe if my throat feels okay in a couple of hours, I might do another one to try to get through to 75, because 5 chapters a day is too slow for me, and it's I'm really excited to know what happens next, and 5 chapters a day just isn't doing it for me. How's your day going so far, Kami? Alright, so I'm gonna get started on chapter 66, the Demoness Sect. Sequence 8, Instigator. They're adept at triggering the evil desires deep in people's heart, causing contradictions and inciting conflict, thus resulting in bloody massacres. Hey Milo, how you doing, bud? Oh, by the way, let me know if you guys can hear me okay, and if you guys can hear the music in the background or not, and then I can adjust accordingly if needed. I tried my best to get this centered pretty well for you guys. If it's still off, let me know, and then I can try to figure that out. The description isn't detailed enough. From the looks of it, the Nighthawks do not understand the capabilities of this potion well enough, but it does seem to match the characteristics of the Alfalfa tragedy. Klein cast his gaze up and read the corresponding sequence 9 for Instigator. Hey Romero, how you doing? Okay, good to know the audio's coming through. I think I'm starting to get vaguely a hang of this. Sequence 9, Assassin, can transform their bodies in a short period of time and become light as a feather. They can also utilize vision equal to that of an eagle. Every assassin is adept at hiding in the shadows. They have dexterous steps and have the ability to release all their strength in one blow. I feel like that's not what an assassin is known for, no? They're not a strength build, they're a dex build. So the dex makes sense, but then like agility with that, strength is kind of odd for an assassin build. Music is a bit too much. Okay, let me turn that down a smidge for you guys. Hopefully that's a little better. Once again, if it's a little off, let me know. I can adjust that as needed. I miss the echo. The voice used to be so majestic. Interesting. I had put the voice settings back down to where they originally were, so I'm not 100% sure where the echo came from originally. That's interesting. I'll maybe play around with it to see if I can get it back or what was causing it in the first place. It's more like a burst ability. Think of it as a 200. Okay. So like a one-hit kill sort of thing. Okay, that makes. I see. Yeah, one-hit kills. That does make sense. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Thanks, guys. After reading the description, Klein was left completely confused. Assassin? The advancement from Assassin is Instigator. That's fair. This advancement is just as odd as how Seer advances to a class that is good at fighting with Artifice. Some sequence pathways advance in a very ordinary fashion, such as spectator, yet there are sequence pathways that seem to violate intuition and logic. Well, that might not be completely true. Perhaps I just haven't discovered some of the hidden common points. For instance, assassins and instigators can both bring catastrophe to others, but I can't figure out the advancement of seer. Hey, could it be of the Gandalf lineage? And after adding some supportive magic, the other attribute points are dumped into strength and technique. I think this is sort of lining up with what someone else mentioned to me, or I guess a couple of you mentioned yesterday, that there's no strong pathway or no strong sequences. They're just like strong beyonders. So they are all in one way or another will enhance you both physically and mentally, just in which order may not be the same across sequences, but that makes sense. As Klein lampooned, yes, Ramiro, he's lampooning again. As Klein lampooned in a speechless manner, he silently shook his head. He flipped to the section about the secret organization, the Theosophy Order that involved instigators. Theosophy Order, a secret organization that appeared in the 5th Epoch, which is the early era of the current epoch. They believe that the mind is fundamental to a person, while the physical flesh is a cage that restrains the mind, totally based. The reason why humans do evil things is a result of their physical body's influence. One has to use their spirituality to gain knowledge. Allowing the mind to gradually extricate from the body, then through the trials of the stars they will eventually be separated from the material world, returning to the purest and truest self, obtaining eternal redemption. Therefore, many extremist members of the Theosophy Order will make destroying the bodies of others their goal, which has led to many bloody massacres. It is obvious that they possess two sequence pathways. The first is more common, apprentice and trickmaster potions among the members. The other sequence, comprised of assassin and instigator, rarely appear. There is currently no evidence that indicates that the Theosophy Order possesses sequence 7 or higher potions. I don't know, in my mind that seems unlikely that they don't possess any sequence 7s, because while sequence 7 beyonders like the captain are strong, it doesn't seem like particularly high, which in my mind makes me think a secret order ought to have like at least a decent chunk of them. But again, I'm just making stuff up here, so who even knows. It is unknown how the Theosophy Order established itself. Their possible origins can only be analyzed using the two sequence pathways. Firstly, the apprentice and the trickmaster sequences easily remind people of the Abraham family of the trickmaster dynasty in the 4th Epoch. That's like so hyper-specific, man, Jesus. The Tamara family, tied to the Abraham family through marriage for extended periods of time, cannot be eliminated either. Secondly, assassin and instigator point towards the demoness sect. The Abraham, Tamara, Antigonus, and Zaratul family, the Solomon Empire's Dark Emperor, and the Tudor Dynasty's Blood Emperor, the Trunset Empire, and the Jacob and Ammon families that the Hanged Man had mentioned. There really are lots of secrets buried in the history of the 4th Epoch. There may be a lot of facts too. Klein was astounded from what he read. He had a deep appreciation for how the history of the 4th Epoch was clouded in fog. Oh, they're a relatively new organization, I see, so they may not have it. As for what seems to be like my favorite, yes, I don't know what your favorite pathway is currently, Romero. Based on like what I've read, my favorite one, at least yet. Wait, these are important. Oh, for fuck's sakes. Okay, let me write it down then. Okay, hold on. Okay, I thought it was just a lore dump. Okay, hold on. I had my document open for this reason. Hold on. I will type this later. I don't wanna take up time. I'm just gonna, so I'll I'll worry about that later, but I'll keep that in mind. Okay. Okay, I promise. Yes, okay. Yes, don't tell me, Romero. I will, I'm sure I'll find out in time. You'll let me know. My current pathway seems to be what the Emperor had previously, or I think it was the, for fuck's sakes, what was the name? Hold on. I had it written down. Savant and then archaeologist. Like, based on what I read, like, since knowledge seems to be like such a strong thing here, I feel like forbidden knowledge of the ruins, which the Emperor Roselle had through like Sequence 8 archaeologist, would be pretty good. Again, that's like very basic rudimentary understanding that I'm sure will change, but like off the top of my head, that feels like kind of dope, because it gives them like a strong body, it gives them knowledge of like artifacts, it gives them knowledge of how to use them, how to prevent like backlashes, how to knowledge of like ruins, like a whole bunch of stuff. So I would think that would be pretty good, but again, yeah, I'm sure that'll change. And even the Emperor himself said like he was kind of sad that he didn't pick one of the other ones, so maybe it turns out to not be that good. Just again, you know. Sorry, I'm gonna get back to this. The outline he could see through the fog left him shuddering involuntarily. It was as though he could imagine a thriving era of Beyonders, an epoch with blood and strangeness in concerted dance, or horror and distortion in a symphony. Oh, yes, nice to have you, Zen and the Amnesiac. Nice to see you guys. Klein drew in a silent gasp and flipped through the book, but did not discover any corresponding descriptions of the demonist sect. He looked up and saw old Neil wrestling with some filter paper with his hand-ground coffee. He asked sincerely, "Mr. Neil, what organization is the demonist sect? I can't find any introduction about them in the documents." Old Neil was in no hurry to respond, but after wrestling with the coffee, he chuckled and said, "Your security clearance isn't high enough. Even with Dunn's permission, you would not be able to read the relevant information. It can also be said that a lot of information is only available in the Holy Cathedral and isn't stored behind Tingen City's Chanis Gate. Perhaps wait till the day you become a captain of the Nighthawks. Wow. You would be sent to the Holy Cathedral for training and then would be able to access them." Wow. Okay, so that's got to be some like really strong thing, because like that's going to be like a really old, really powerful secret organization, because like, I mean, for only a captain level to have access to them, I'm assuming old Neil knows just because of his sheer tenure with the Nighthawks. He's been here for forever basically, but like that's crazy, like that you'll have access to them if you become a captain. That's nuts. I do not understand much about the demonist sect. All I know is that they worship the primordial demoness. They believe that this secret existence is the true inheritor of the creator. She was born out of the chaos and was the earliest to be born from the creator's body. She is also the ultimate ender that ends everything. Their sequence pathways are related to this because to obtain the favor of the primordial demoness and to approach this secret existence, the upper echelons are all female. That is why they're known as the demonist sect. I see. Okay. All the upper echelons are female. Okay, so that means like they can... so like they have male members, but I assume either they can't become Beyonders or they can only be Beyonders up to like a certain level. So like number 8 or 7 or whatever that kind of works out to. Okay. Anything else is not something a formal member like me will know. I've heard that the demonists make it their mission to spread catastrophes. Spread catastrophes. This does match the hidden commonality of assassin and instigator. But this Mr. Triss's future seems to be bleak. The subsequent potions seem to be more suited for females. Klein nodded slightly before he continued reading the information. After he finished reading, he realized that the secret organizations were a lot more than he imagined, but on second thought, he found it very ordinary. After all, this world had so many years of history underlying it. There was once an era when Beyonder powers were extremely active. That is something I will say the author's done an exceptionally good job of. Like, this statement here kind of just underlines it. Like, the world has so many years of history underlying it. Like, it actually feels like it. It feels like a world that's hyper fleshed out and we're like learning about it instead of a world that's like developing in front of us, is I guess the difference. If that makes any sense. I don't know if that's the best way to phrase it, but like the example that comes to mind is like One Piece. One Piece is a world that's hyper fleshed out, but it feels like the world is being built in front of us instead of us just simply finding out the existence of the world little by little. See you, Zen. Hope you have a great day. According to the provided information, Klein categorized the secret organizations into three based on era. First were the ancient organizations born in the Fourth Epoch. They included, but were not limited to, the Moses Ascetic Order, Secret Order, and the Blood Sanctify sect, which were followers of the devil. However, the information only mentioned the Demonist sect. The second was the secret organization early in the Fifth Epoch, the present epoch. For instance, the Theosophy Order or the demon-worshipping numinous, that is, oh my god, why would, this is so rough, Jesus Christ, numinous episcop, oh my god, I'm gonna, you know what, I will worry about that later, it's fine. That. There is also the Life School of Thought, which employs a master discipline heritage, and the Rose School of Thought, which are known among Beyonders for its bloody sacrifices. The third category were the new organizations that appeared in the recent century or two. They include the Aurora Order, the Iron and Blood Cross Order, the Element Dawn, and the Psychology Alchemists, which Klein learned about much earlier. Numinous EpiPen. Okay, sorry. Okay, well, it's good to know, because that other people can't pronounce that either, because I mentioned this yesterday. I always felt like I had a really good grasp of the English language, and as I'm reading this, it's like at least once a chapter I have to either look up a word or like have to figure like look up how to pronounce it. Like, it's nuts. Like, I feel like this shouldn't happen as often as it does. I feel like maybe I don't have a good grasp of the English language. Apart from them, there were other organizations that did not do anything major. Benson and Melissa must have never imagined that the world is so dangerous. It's not only limited to wars. Klein shook his head with a wry smile. He stacked the classified documents neatly before pushing it to old Neil. Meanwhile, he added silently in his heart, "Please don't let my tarot club be on the list." I have a feeling his tarot club is eventually going to end up being like the strongest of the secret organizations or whatever, because his stuff is like, that is that's a nutsy thing. I don't think we've seen anything the equivalent of it where they can summon people in, like, both physically and ethereally into like another dimension. That feels kind of nuts. Old Neil never suspected that a leader of a secret organization was sitting opposite to him. He chuckled and took the documents and headed to Chanis Gate. Klein sat there and wondered if he should divine the location of instigator Triss, but he abandoned the thought after less than 20 seconds. After all, he only had a vague idea of Triss's appearance and did not know if the name was genuine. If he could figure out his location with that, he would not be a seer, but a prophet. By the time old Neil returned, Klein had straightened his thought process and continued his revision of mysticism studies to grasp even more forms of ritualistic magic. Lampoon has become a household word. Yeah, I'm going to start just using that so it becomes part of the vernacular around here. it made your vocabulary better. Yeah, I'm sure it would. Like, I feel like if I kept the same kind of notes that I do for like lore related stuff regarding words that I've seen that I did not know prior to this, I feel like I would get the same sort of effect. He spent the day studying and revising. He did not participate in the joint operation needed for capturing instigator Triss. He did hear that the delivery of sealed artifact 249 from Black Lung had been delayed due to some reason or another. The actual time of arrival was still pending. As he had earned nearly 2 soli from yesterday's divination, Klein spent 10 pence to buy a 2-liter barrel of Enmat beer for Benson on the way home. He also bought some lemon cakes fresh out of the oven for Melissa. Klein, I know you care for us deeply, but there's no need. There's no need to keep spending money on such matters, said Benson after he saw the tiny barrel of beer and deliberated over his words. Melissa stood beside him and nodded slightly. This is probably how our consumerist habits differ. This is true. They're not used to all of these. Capitalists, trying to siphon all their money out. They just live in a world where you get what you need, right? And then here we are where if you can go 4 minutes without seeing an ad somewhere, you are hyper lucky, and everything is just always about consuming more and more. I love it. Benson, Melissa, don't worry. This was bought by my additional reimbursement. Yeah, I earn an additional 2 to 4 soli every week. I can't tell them that these are the earnings I got from doing divinations for others, right? Well, I mean, maybe you could. I don't know. That job of yours is much better than I imagined. Benson was taken aback as he made an objective assessment. That's right. I even learned divination from it. Klein mused silently before turning to the kitchen. Under the combined efforts of the trio of siblings, a sumptuous dinner was ready for eating. After having their fill, Klein, Benson, and Melissa lay slumped in the living hall. It took them quite a while before they got up to clean, chat, and study. When Benson and Melissa fell asleep, I'll head above the grey fog to see the effects of the ritual. As Klein revised his history books, he shot a glance at his siblings. Westboro, Iron Cross Street, Lower Street. Feels kind of nuts that that the word street is in there twice, but hey, whatever. A 3-story apartment was immersed in darkness. There were no street lamps or additional lights. Suddenly, a figure leapt out of the window from the 3rd floor. It landed gently on the ground like a feather without causing so much as a stir. This is, I think, so this has got to be Triss, because I think it was mentioned in the assassin class that one of the things they could do was like make themselves light as a feather, right? Oh wait, I just realized, did I write down about the instigator already? Hold on. I did not write, oh sorry, I gotta write that down. Sorry guys, give me 2 seconds. Where is that? Sequence 9. Feather. To 8 instigator can parts. Okay. Sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss any of that. Hey, Light. Nice to have you. Thank you for joining. Where was I? Yes. Westboro, Iron Cross Street, Lower Street. A 3-story apartment was immersed in darkness. There was no street lamps or additional light. Suddenly, a figure leapt out of a window from the 3rd floor. It landed gently on the ground like a feather without causing so much as a stir. His body crouched and suddenly vanished as though it had blended into the darkness. All that could be seen was the outline of his body. As he traveled quickly, the figure arrived at the harbor. He headed for a corner devoid of anything except for a pile of goods. He seriously observed for a moment, circling the area twice before leaving the darkness and entering the corner. One could see his round and amiable face. He was instigator Triss, who had single-handedly caused the tragedy on the Alfalfa. How does it feel? A mysterious figure wearing a black hooded robe walked out of the shadows. The hoarse voice obviously belonged to a woman. Triss revealed a friendly and satisfied smile. Feels great. It was a scene I dreamed and yearned for years. I think I have appropriately completed the mission and have taken the necessary preparations for the advancement. The black-robed woman nodded indiscernibly and said, "Very well. According to the promise, I'll hand you sequence 7 formula and the 3 main ingredients. You will have to gather the rest yourself." "No problem," Triss answered, seemingly prepared. So she's obviously someone from the Demonist sect. And whether he's an official member or like someone who's like just helping externally to this lady, I don't know, because this doesn't feel very like official or anything. This is interesting. The mysterious woman raised her hand and handed a book-like object to Triss. The book had an ancient and mottled bronze exterior cover with a strange star-shaped lock on its side. Triss knew that inside the book was a formula and ingredients. He instantly became thrilled. He tried hard to compose himself as he looked curiously at the potion's name on the bronze outer cover. "Witch," Triss exclaimed. He found it unbelievable that the word written in ancient Hermes was witch. Witch? I'll advance to a witch? What a joke. Okay. That's like, okay. Just for the author, bro, you can't use the same word this many times. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times in 3 sentences. That's nuts. And the mysterious woman covered her mouth and let out a chortle. It took her quite some time before she answered, "Weren't you always curious? Curious why our upper echelons are all female? This is the answer." So wait, are you... Okay, does that mean like he'll become a woman? What does that mean? Like, aren't you curious why our upper echelons are all women? I don't know whether this means that like only a woman can take sequence 7 and like not spontaneously combust or whatever, or if it'll just... Or what happens here? Interesting. Romero, you know what I mean, like, bro, but, okay, this is a bit much, no? Witch, Triss exclaimed. He found it unbelievable that the word written in ancient Hermes was witch. Witch? I'll advance to becoming a witch? Like, bro, come on. Like, twice was good. You could, leave this one. This sentence is good. Leave this one. I'll advance to become a witch. No problem. Do that. Like, 4 is a bit much, no? And that's the end of chapter 66. Oh wait, I should probably write that down too. 7, witch. Okay. The chapter 67, response. The crimson moon high in the sky hung silently in the darkness. It illuminated Tingen City, the city of universities, as it gradually fell silent. Klein stood in front of his desk and looked through his oriel window to see the empty Daffodil Street. He heard the sound of carriages quickly galloping far away without causing a din. He picked up his vine leaf patterned silver pocket watch and snapped it open. He took a glance at it and drew the curtains, making the yellowish lights of the gas lamp reflect back into his bedroom. Klein turned around at an adequate speed, locked his room, and switched off the gas valve. The room was immediately covered in darkness. Only a sliver of red moonlight penetrated the curtains. It gave rise to an atmosphere perfect for many late-night folk tales. Klein took out the silver knife he had applied for. He imagined the spherical light and entered a half-cogitation state. He focused his mind according to his previous practice, allowing his spirituality to spew out from the tip of his blade. Then he allowed their motion to miraculously fuse with his surroundings, sealing off the room. He was doing it to prevent any abnormal stirrings that could wake Benson and Melissa. Following that, Klein put down the knife and walked 4 steps in a counterclockwise manner. Every step was Every step was accompanied by the incantation from Earth. The unchanging roars and murmurs inundated him. With the same mania and pain inflicted on him, he did his best to control himself and withstood the most grueling and dangerous stage in his half-conscious state. The grayish-white fog was endless. The dark stars were at varying distances from him. The towering divine palace stood erect like a dead giant. Nothing seems to have changed. The silence and antiquity that had accumulated over thousands of years swarmed him. No, there is a change, Klein silently muttered to himself, his gaze locked onto a dark star near him. That was the star symbolizing justice. The star's deep redness began to pulse. It did so with average amplitude, but did not stop. Klein carefully spread out his spirituality towards the deep redness. The moment the two made contact, he felt a hum in his head. He saw a blurry and distorted scene and heard the illusory but stacked voices of prayers. The fool that doesn't belong to this era. You are the mysterious ruler above the gray fog. You are the king of yellow and black who wields good luck. I pray for your help. I pray for your loving grace. I pray for you to give me a good dream. I pray for you to give me a good dream. The female voice resounded constantly in an intermittent fashion. Klein's psyche turned more irritable and chaotic. It was akin to listening to someone upstairs pounding on the floor when he had just fallen asleep. He repressed his emotions and used cogitation to calm the urge. He carefully discerned the blurry scene that appeared before him. It was a girl dressed in white robes. She had a head of beautiful golden hair. She was standing before 4 flickering flames, her head lowered as she kept chanting. From the distorted image, Klein barely recognized her to be Miss Justice. At this point, he confirmed that the ritual incantation he had created could precisely point towards the gray fog, towards him. Bro is him? Sorry, I just had to get a drink. This gave him a huge sense of achievement, going from nothing to having something. I won't praise myself for being awesome. Klein's mood turned for the better. He felt that the pleading voice that echoed in his ears was like a buzzing fly, now acceptable. With the thought, he attempted to create a response in his mind, transferring it through the intricate connection to the red star. I'm aware. The gray layer emanated before him. A distorted and blurry figure stood in his deepest thoughts. The spot where his eyes ought to be swirled with deep redness as the voice resounded repeatedly in the vast and empty world. I am aware. Audrey Hall was jolted awake. She sat up with her blanket wrapped around her as her mind was fully occupied with the scene she saw in the dream. She knew very well that she had dreamed of the fool, the mysterious being that lived above the fog. Is this a response to my morning prayers? Audrey, who quickly entered her spectator state, calmed down and analyzed. Although she did not understand why, the fool did not respond on the step and only did so at night. She was still shocked that the ritualistic magic was effective with the few lines of incantation. In the past, she had prayed to the Evernight goddess, but had never received any response. Even if Mr. Fool was not a god, he is likely not far from being one. My guy is very far from being... My guy's like a regular guy. This is like level 9 Beyonder. This guy's as basic as they come for the moment. Audrey slowly inhaled before slowly exhaling. Since he was a powerful existence that she had no means of resisting, she quickly threw aside her worries. She began considering what to do next. First, I have to completely digest the spectator potion. My acting is still pretty good. Second, I have to seek out the psychology alchemists. Third, I should try to obtain the the telepathist potion formula from Mr. Fool or clues regarding the psychology alchemists elsewhere. However, every godlike existence should have a complete sequence pathway that belongs to them. They may not know the formulas of other sequence pathways. A new Beyonder organization like the psychology alchemists might not be able to garner Mr. Fool's attention. The great scammer, unironically. And scammer, get scammed, buddy. I have nothing to offer you. I am broke. With the connection severed, Klein sat at the bronze table's seat of honor in a rather good mood. He was completely covered in grey fog. He leaned back and clenched his fist to cover his mouth. He analyzed and recalled the process. At that moment, he was the only being in the world of grey fog. Apart from that, there was absolute silence. I have a feeling he's not alone. I have a feeling there's something in there. I don't know what, but I feel like there's something that allows him to come here. At that moment, he was nope, already did that. It seems I can only pass information over and I'm unable to use the powers in here. From the looks of it, my idea of manipulation would not work. Klein kept prodding his mouth as he silently made a conclusion. He had originally planned on attempting to bind his body with the world of grey fog in the same manner if the incantation and ritual proved effective. As such, he could then leverage all the powers of this mysterious space. If that happened, he could pray to himself, and through such a manipulative manner, he could go around the limitations, the mysteries, and the danger, allowing him to fully use the world of grey fog. For example, he could first conduct a ritual and pray to himself for spells. Following that, he could come above the grey fog and answer his own request and bestow it. From the looks of it, I was being too idealistic. My understanding and control of the grey fog has not reached that level. Klein shook his head in a self-deprecating manner and planned on leaving. At that moment, he saw a red star that represented the hanged man begin to pulse. He heard an ethereal and formless voice spread out. I coincidentally chanced upon the hanged man's ritual too. He sat at the seat of honor on the long bronze table and extended his hand to tap on the star. His spirituality spread as it touched the pulsing redness. He heard the hanged man's heavy and repeated prayers along with a blurry scene. The hanged man was draped in a pure black robe in the scene. He stood in front of 4 plumes of fire. The surrounding spirituality had formed a wall, isolating him from any external influence. Klein trying not to scamp you. The Lord believer. Klein Moretti. Unironically true. That's like a Christianity reference for sure. Klein did not immediately respond. All he did was watch and listen silently. You are the king of yellow and black who wields good luck. I pray for your help. After the hangman finished his prayer, he waited for a while, seeing that there was no response. He began dismantling the spirituality wall, extinguished the candle, and tidied up the altar. Finally, he swiped his extended hand as aqueous light spread out, making the altar table look brand new. Water-based spell, the bestowment of the storm. The hanged man is indeed at least a seafarer. Klein nodded slightly before the scene vanished. He responded via the method he imagined, transmitting it through the blob of dark redness. Alger Wilson was situated in the Rorstead archipelago city of generosity. He had not gone with the sailors to the famous Red Cabaret. Instead, he stayed inside the hotel and sealed the door and windows and shut to attempt the ritual the fool had described. After familiarly finishing the prayer, Alger waited patiently for a moment but did not receive any response. It seems this attempt isn't too successful. Mr. Fool needs to change his methods. He was both overjoyed but a little disappointed. After everything was done, Alger planned on going downstairs for a bottle of Linsky proof. Alcohol that could aid a folk of rage to unleash his powers. Mandated punishers of the Lord of Storm were rather fond of this sort of beverage. Hold on. So this sort of alcohol can help him unleash his power. Interesting. That's interesting. So so the alcohol helps him. I mean, I guess it's a sailor's thing to be drunk all the livelong day, but it's funny nonetheless. Puzzling opened the door. Alger was about to walk out when his vision blurred. He saw grey fog billow in the corridor and the hazy human figure sitting in the deepest depths of the fog, as if on a high throne. I'm aware. The familiar deep voice reverberated around Alger's ears, causing him to freeze where he stood as his head slightly throbbed in pain. His eyes suddenly turned dark. He looked around but realized that nothing had changed. There was still the same squeaky floorboard, the same aged wall candle stands, the same unclean corridor. I'm aware. His expression sank as he hit his chest lightly with his fist but did not say any words, out of respect to the Lord of Storm. After a long silence, Alger's expression returned to normal, but his gaze seemed deeper. Klein did not spend too much time above the grey fog. When all the remnant voices returned to normal, he enveloped himself in his spirituality and plunged into the grey fog, plummeting into the material world. It's just the power of the folk of rage, more power. Oh, okay, I see. It's just the Super Saiyan method. Okay, fair enough, that would do it too. The lights before him flew by rapidly, like the scenes of a movie played back at a speed tens of times faster than normal. After Klein felt faint, he saw curtains that let crimson moonlight through, along with the blurry outlines of the desk and bookshelf. He picked up the silver knife again and removed the spirituality wall in the room. Then a sudden gust of wind opened the door and went through the corridor. He was completely relieved when he saw that there was no stirrings from Benson or Melissa's room. This luck enhancement ritual is really indispensable for traveling. It's concealed and mystical. Klein silently murmured and closed the door again, walking towards his bed. His mission tomorrow was to head to the underground market for Beyonder items with old Neil. Alright. That was a good chapter. I like it. You guys are absolutely right. This motherfucker's aura farming on the daily. This motherfucker does not care. Alright, give me just 2 seconds, guys. I'm just gonna run to the washroom. I'll be back in literally 2 seconds. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys. I'm right back. Okay. Chapter 68. Okay. Monster. Okay, now that's a title, I will say. At dusk, the setting sun cast long shadows on the carriage and horses. Having informed Benson and Melissa that he was having dinner at the Blackthorn Security Company, Klein headed back to the harbor with old Neil on a public carriage. He was dressed in cheap formal attire, afraid that conflict might break out in such a complicated place. If he had damaged his tuxedo, which he took painstaking care of, he would probably cry his heart out. Monster Hunter reference. I was just thinking the manga monster reference, but Monster Hunter also works, I guess. When the sunlight appeared to turn fiery, the carriage stopped. Old Neil, in his usual classic black robe and felt black hat with a rounded edge, ignored the gazes of others and walked diagonally to the Evil Dragon Bar in front of them. Evil Dragon Bar, that's a name there, man. Evil Dragon Bar. That's a place where you go to get fucking hammered. Even though the bar was slightly far away and the heavy doors were tightly shut, Klein still heard wave after wave of rapturous shouts. He appeared to be cheering on a hero. When he came close, he suddenly sensed something. He turned his head towards the warehouse opposite to the bar. He saw a stocky man dressed in a uniform standing outside at a hidden corner on the rooftop. The man carried a huge grayish-white mechanical box and held a thick rifle in hand. I agree. I think my reference is better than his. The grayish-white mechanical box was obviously connected to the same color rifle via piping. Steam-pressured rifle, Klein muttered in shock. He looked at Old Neil and said, "This bar can actually obtain such weapons? That was a military-controlled item." Although it was extracted... Phlogiston? I want to say phlogiston, but that's a rough name, man. Jesus. The size and weight of the steam backpack were still shocking, something only a true warrior of blood and iron could withstand. The rifle had an extremely high muzzle velocity and shocking destructive power too. Matched with a suitable scope, it was nearly the equivalent to an inferior super sniper rifle. What? Old Neil squinted his eyes as he looked over, having a confused look too. Did something happen over there? Something happened. Klein surveyed his surroundings and discovered a few more men holding repeating rifles who were searching for something. What happened? Old Neil approached the bar and asked the brawny man guarding its door outside. The brawny man obviously knew Old Neil and smiled wryly. The bar was nearly destroyed earlier. Apparently, a wanted man was here trying to buy materials and was recognized. But this is what resulted from it. Oh Lord, what did he do, and how dangerous was he to receive such treatment? My legs went limp from seeing all those firearms, limper than after spending an entire night with Ginger Sonny. Alright, thanks, guy. I really needed that. He did not know the identity of the wanted man, much less know that the people who came by to buy materials had Beyonders mixed in. Wanted man? Do you know his name do you know his name? Old Neil asked in interest. I think it was Triss or something, the brawny man answered uncertainly. Instigator Triss. Klein nodded in enlightenment, having understood what was happening. Triss did not know that Joyce Mayer had cast his suspicion on him. Therefore, he sauntered right into the market to purchase materials without heed. He was likely recognized by an informant of either the machinery hive mind or the Nighthawks, resulting in an intense clash. Was he caught? Klein tapped his silver inlaid black cane. Based on the situation, likely not. The brawny man shook his head slightly and gestured with his chin to the rooftop of the warehouse opposite to him. He rushed out before those terrifying guys arrived. Bloody hell. I've never seen a man run faster than he did. You haven't seen the true skills of an assassin, or you might be taken away to some indescribable place for further re-education, Klein thought. Is the market still open? Old Neil changed subjects and asked. It just restored operations, replied the brawny man. That's great. Old Neil quickly quickened his pace and extended his right hand, pushing the heavy door. Bro, if this place almost got destroyed, I doubt the next morning they're like, oh yes, we gotta start back up, boys. No shot. They'd be like, okay, this place is closed for like a week. Although I guess in fairness it is like Victorian era England, so there's no like safety regulations or whatever, so like, I mean, who really gives a shit if someone like trips on bricks or whatever? Not my problem. Klein followed closely in tow and walked in. He nearly fainted at the stuffiness and smell of alcohol that inundated him. In the middle of Evil Dragon Bar was a boxing ring. Two half-naked men were in an intense brawl, and surrounding them were dozens of customers shouting and cheering on the side they supported, with no lack of vulgarities. Old Neil ignored them and led Klein around the boxing ring and walked into a billiard room at the back. In the billiard room, there were two people holding cue sticks having a casual conversation. When they saw Old Neil enter, they instantly fell silent for a few seconds. After confirming the visitor's identity, they moved aside and let Old Neil and Klein pass through the secret door behind them. After passing through a few rooms, the sight before Klein's eyes opened up. He saw a place that was about the size of the lecture hall in his previous life. Jeez. And some vendors that had set up roadside stalls with bottles and cans all over. Passerbys strolled through them, either scrutinizing their goods, chatting, or comparing prices. I too love billiards. Although I'm not very good, so that's a separate issue, but I do enjoy it, yes. They have to give 5% of their profits to Swain. He's the boss of Evil Dragon Bar, former captain of the mandated Punisher Squad and older than I am. He's someone who wishes to drink himself to his death, Old Neil explained in a... Seriously, what is that word? Okay, hold on. Garrulous manner. Okay. Garrulous, excessively talkative. Okay. Klein thought and gave an honest opinion, a rather profitable business. After all, his only expenses was providing venue and protection. I like playing brother, I can barely play it sober as a nun. I start playing it drunk, I'm not hitting shit, alright? If an item catches your fancy but you lack the money, you can borrow from Swain, but of course he charges a high interest. Old Neil trailed off as he gnashed his teeth. As expected, it's like running a casino. They would provide usuries. Klein held his walking stick and looked around and asked curiously, Mr. Swain is a seafarer? The captain of a mandated Punisher squad was likely a Sequence 7. No, he is only a folk of rage. Tingen is not a coastal city, so the Church of the Goddess is much more powerful than Lord of the Storms here. Actually, Swain had the chance of becoming a seafarer, but was afraid he would lose control, so he chose to give it up. Just as Klein was about to ask if the boss of the bar had any experience of nearly losing control, he suddenly felt a strange phenomenon happen on his left. There appeared to be something hidden there, muttering and recounting. Klein turned his head and saw a pale young man. He was wearing an old linen shirt and blue jeans that the working class normally wore. His eyes looked demoralized with a hint of craziness, and he was constantly mumbling. His spiritual perception is very high, or perhaps distorted. Klein creased his eyebrows and muttered. It was the young man's spiritual perception that triggered his own spiritual perception. Generally speaking, spiritual perception, sensing something, causes some interaction. It was nearly impossible to conceal it from others, but others referred to spirit mediums who had cast their abilities as well as powerful figures with similar special traits. A beyonder like Klein would actually find it hard to detect. Only detecting if one's spiritual perception reached a certain heightened level or abnormal distortion happened. They made eye contact, and the pale young man with messy black hair walked towards him with an expression looking as though he was half sleepwalking and half insane. Those are good halves. That's great. I was expecting with like half sleepwalking, he would be like half something good. No, just half insane. He stopped before Klein and stared at him. Suddenly he guffawed. Good Lord. Haha, it's the smell of death. Death. Before he was done talking, he suddenly screamed tragically. His eyes shut tightly as liquid with the color of blood flowed out. Ah, damn it. The young man covered his eyes and hugged his head. He struggled on the ground and only calmed after a while. He then lay there panting. During the entire process, not a single customer or stall vendor looked over. Okay, so this is just a daily process, clearly. Klein pressed down his half-top hat and looked at old Neil. Klein's mouth was hanging open in shock, using his actions to demonstrate his shock and a request for advice. Don't mind him. He's a demisol, an orphan nicknamed Monster. He was born with high spiritual perception, and he has always been able to see things that he shouldn't, hear voices that he shouldn't. Hence, he's always raving and often getting hurt. Old Neil shook his head as he explained. He could tell that my body was once dead. Klein knitted his eyebrows and lowered his voice and asked in doubt, haven't the Nighthawks, the mandated punishers, or the machinery hive mind ever thought of taking him in? No, we do not have the sequence potion that suits him, old Neil said with a sigh. Right, he was born with a starting point of half a sequence. What sequence pathway suits him? Sequence 9 that suits him is called Monster. His nickname came from there. It's a pity that only the school of life of thought has control over sequence pathways beginning. Wow. Alright, another name, another... Okay. Average Serbian. He tried to keep the conversation between him and Klein from the people around him to avoid leaking information to mysticism aficionados. Life School of Thought, Klein recalled the information he had previously read. The secret organization appeared in the middle of the current epoch. Its actual origins were unknown, but it was mainly passed down via master and disciple. Their theories and beliefs were hardly known. Klein only knew that they separated the world into 3 layers. The definite, rational world, also known as the absolute truth, the spirit world, and the material world. Isn't the rational world and the material world one and the same? Or is it like the world of logic, the world of like spirits, and the world of the physical? I guess that's a closer, probably, interpretation. Rumor had it that the secret organizations once produced a soothsayer. Wasn't that a sequence pathway that corresponded to seer? Confusing. Really confusing. Klein shook his head and saw a demisol struggle to get up and then wander off to another corner. He reorganized his thoughts and followed behind old Neil. He walked past one stall after another. There were plants like moonflower, fingered citron, night vanilla, and mineral resources like silver, topaz, ruby, and so on. It's very well equipped. The mysticism aficionados of all ages and genders were around him were stopping, distinguishing, or talking at times. It gave the area a bustling vibe. Walk around on your own, I'm going to settle my bill. Old Neil pointed to one of the 2 rooms at the end. All right, Klein said Klein nodded without thought. He strolled with his black cane and came before a stall which sold self-made amulets. He took a careful look at it for a while. Just when Klein was prepared to speak with the seller, he suddenly heard someone asking behind the stall, "Is this powder ground from cow teeth peonal?" Cow teeth peonal? Isn't that one of the supplementary ingredients of the spectator potion? Klein thought, and then turned around to look at the inquirer. Justice had repeated the ingredients for the potion several times, so Klein had been left with a remarkably clear impression of the ingredients. So someone might be trying to become a spectator. Ooh, cool. I have a feeling that the monster kid is going to end up being important later. I feel like they wouldn't name a chapter after him and him be so... he's either going to become like a high-level sequencer who's like competent and put together and like thankful to Klein for helping him, or he's going to die very soon. Those are the two options. Alright, that's the end of 68. 2 more. Alright, we're actually making good timing today. If I can stay on pace, I should be done like probably 20 minutes prior to expected. I've generally been averaging like 2 hours for 5 chapters, and I'm 3 chapters in 1 hour, so that's pretty good. Okay. Chapter 69, Protection Amulet. Klein looked over and saw the person inquiring about the cow teeth peonal. The man was less than a meter away from him. He was wearing a black suit and half-top hat of the same color. He had a cane adorned with silver in his hand and a pair of gold-framed spectacles on his face. He had a refined bearing. Yes, do you need it? It costs 3... Here costs 3 soli. The owner of the stall was wearing a long black robe, one filled with mysticism traits. If you gotta go in 30 minutes, Romero, feel free. I think we should be done right around that time, maybe 10 minutes after, maybe something like that. We should be pretty close though. So, I appreciate you coming though, bud. The inquirer, whose sideburns were pale yellow, thought for a moment before saying, "Can it be cheaper? I still need to buy other ingredients too. For example, this bottle of white-edged sunflower petals." The owner considered for a few seconds before grudgingly reply, 2 soli and 6 pence. I don't think you can find a price cheaper than that. Klein immediately felt that he was overthinking things after seeing how the bespectacled man was buying ingredients other than the cow teeth peonal. However, he tapped his glabella twice as an act of caution. He swept the man with his spirit vision. "No problem. He looks very healthy. His emotions are alright too. Mister, you need to keep this up." Klein retracted his gaze and turned around and looked at the stall selling homemade amulets once again. The amulets were placed neatly before him. Some of them were made of pure silver, some of steel, others forged from gold. But only a few of the amulets had a weak aura emanating from them, some crimson, some pale, and some golden. This meant that some of them had weak traces of spirituality and were definitely effective to a certain degree. Klein looked at the amulets carefully and confirmed that the stall owner was making the amulets had some foundation in mysticism. The stall owner did not make any mistakes matching the corresponding energy sources to the different incantations. He was also extremely accurate at choosing the materials that corresponded to different energy sources. Of course, a mere mysticism aficionado would definitely make some mistakes. Klein noticed that the stall owner did not fully understand the incantations. One could not create an incantation simply by translating the content of the prayer into Hermes. The incantation had to follow a certain format that followed unique rules. The other problem was that the stall owner had made mistakes of varying degrees when he was choosing a suitable symbol for the energy sources. That explained why there were only 2 or 3 amulets releasing the faint light out of the dozen that were laid before him. As for how much of an effect the 2 or 3 amulets would have, Klein could only say that it was better than nothing. Well, I thought that was self-evident. An amulet that was truly equipped with obvious effects needed the craftsman to release his spirituality from a blade while carving the incantation and symbols. If one wanted even better results, they would have to supplement it with ritualistic magic, and these two were not something an ordinary person could achieve. Klein tapped his glabella twice and pointed at the upper left corner of the stall with his black cane. How much for these two? He did not ask about the amulets that had a rudimentary colored aura, but half-completed items. Other than external shape, they had not been carved with incantations or symbols. So I guess he figured that half-completed, he could complete them better than what was for sale, and they'd probably be a decent bit cheaper too. Knows how to He did not ask about the to Klein. There was no reason to purchase the amulets that had weak effects. What he wanted to do was transform these half-completed amulets into true amulets. Figured, I'll make the amulets that can protect a person from danger. One for each Benson and Melissa. As for my own, I can ask the Nighthawks to supply me with the ingredients. Man, I must have been influenced by old Neil. I don't feel any guilt when doing something like that. Why should you, bro? Alright, let them pay for it. It's the government. They got money. It's fine. Klein's mind wandered as he watched the stall owner pick up the half-completed silver amulets. The first silver amulet was elongated with a cavity in the middle. Sorry. Around it were patterns of angel-like feathers. The craftsmanship was intricate and very beautiful. The other was simple, almost completely devoid of any additional decorations or carvings. It had a vertical line representing the night and a circle representing the crimson moon. Klein, who had paid much attention to appearances, took a liking to them immediately. This is 6 soli, the middle-aged stall owner said, pointing to the intricate amulet. After pausing for a while, he rubbed the simpler piece and said, "This is 5 soli and 3 pence. That's way too expensive. They're still far from being an amulet." Klein had slowly been influenced by Benson and Melissa, so he had begun cultivating the habit of haggling. After a battle of words, he bought the 2 silver accessories at 5 soli, 6 pence, and 4 soli, 9 pence. So 9 soli and 15 pence, so that's a little less than 10 soli. Whereas, what was the original price? 11? 11.3? It's pretty good. Yes, they can only be considered silver prices for silver accessories for the time being. Klein had that in mind. The 10 soli 3 pence was deducted from the reimbursement he received for his divination club membership. Klein received the 2 silver accessories and placed them into his pocket. He was about to head to another stall when he heard a gentle voice. "Sir, why are you not buying a completed amulet?" Klein turned his head over and found a teenage girl asking him the questions. She was about 15 and wore a lacy yellow dress while holding onto a veiled hat with a ribbon. "It's because I intend to make my own amulets. As you know, the wish of every aficionado of mysticism." Klein minced his words and answered. He did not wish to make the stall owner think that he was trying to snatch business, even though he had considered using his skill to earn a quick buck. The teenage girl had naturally curly hair, and her face was adorable due to her baby fat. You can't be saying that, bro. Come on. She looked at Klein with her light blue eyes and asked sincerely, "Can I seek your advice on choosing an amulet?" "Well, I was introduced here by a friend. I've been here several times and have a deep interest in mysticism, but I still do not know too much about it, and she, my friend, is going to turn 16 soon. I wish to select an amulet as a gift to her. I didn't bring her along as I wanted it to be a surprise. I had previously sought her advice, but I cannot remember a lot of critical points." Klein gave a gentlemanly smile. "What kind of protection amulets are you looking for? Something to avert disaster, something to avoid illness, something that gave fortune?" Different requirements would require different energy sources, which means that they must point to different gods. Different gods would have different corresponding constellations, and different constellations would mean that they have different materials to be used. Oh no, I don't. Oh no, I remember. He didn't say anything sus, but he said her face was adorable due to her baby fat. I thought that was that's just nothing. You're right. He is absolutely not Rudius, who's a fucking god. I like the. I haven't read it, but the anime was good, and then it was like, oh god, it's so like I don't want to watch it. I feel like disgusting watching it. This is not good. For example, the incantation for averting disaster would belong to the Empress of Disaster and Horror, who is the Evernight goddess. As mysticism aficionados, we all know that the symbol of the Evernight goddess is the moon. The corresponding metal would thus be pure silver. Therefore, if we hope to avert disaster, it's best we choose an amulet made of pure silver and has the corresponding incantations. We would also have to make sure that the incantations are of the correct language and format. The corresponding symbol of the Empress of Disaster and Horror means the path number, the spell's characteristics, and the relative position of the symbols must also be correct, but this is too complicated and there's no need for me to explain this to you. The girl's eyes sparkled. She said with a little doubt, "Can a follower of the goddess wear an amulet belonging to another god?" "No problem. The gods do not mind such small matters," Klein consoled her. It was not a problem for the person wearing the amulet, but the person crafting the amulet had to be careful. If a believer of the Lord of Storm was to craft an amulet of the eternal blazing sun, they would most likely receive something malicious. So the person crafting the amulet had to be careful. Interesting. Okay. Dude, I agree. Rudius hater. I like the show, but goddamn, see, I don't know why that's such a strong point for him. Like, Jesus Christ. The show can be so good if you take that garbage out. Like, why ruin it with that? I don't understand. It was, of course, these referred to amulets requiring the aid of ritualistic magic. The craftsmen need not pay much attention to this otherwise. The teenage girl heaved a sigh of relief. I hope to get her an amulet for good health. Which deity should I choose from? The eternal blazing sun, Mother Earth, or the god of knowledge and wisdom? There should be no problem with eternal blazing sun and Mother Earth. The former is represented by the sun, while the latter is represented by the brown star. The material of the sun is gold, while the metal that symbolizes the brown star is lead. I would suggest the sun, but I do not know if you brought enough money along with you. The reason for his suggestion was because he had noticed that among the three amulets was a rudimentary spiritual glow. One of them was a health amulet that came under the domain of the sun. "Isn't this..." Before the teenage girl finished, she stopped and wearily looked at the stall owner, who was silently waiting. She thought for a moment before asking, "After I decide on a material, how should I distinguish the incantation corresponding symbols?" "Do you know Hermes?" Klein asked. "I just started learning it," a little embarrassed, the girl said. "Let me choose it for you." Klein pointed at the health amulet made of gold and said, "This one has no problem, be it in the incantation or the representing symbol." The teenage girl lifted the edges of her dress and squatted in front of the amulet. She picked up the health amulet with the design of the sun's rays around its edges. She felt as though the amulet was nourishing her, making her completely relaxed. Well, do we know that the gods are real? Well, I guess if you're saying, if you're using the definition that a god is anything that's like stronger and beyond human understanding, then yeah, I guess gods are real for sure. But like God generally, at least here, implies like a omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent being, and I don't know if that exists, but that's neither here nor there. All right. Sorry. Thank you, thank you. She stood up and courtesied in gratitude. I'll leave the rest to you and the stall owner. I have other things to attend to, Klein said. He looked up at the stall owner as he spoke and noticed that the man had a weird look in his eye, as if deciding he had to give a cut of the profit to Klein. With a smile, Klein did not bother with the matter any more. He continued touring the underground market, but he did not notice any true extraordinary materials. At this point, old Neil had already paid off his debt. He was holding a dark-colored wooden box in his hand. He pointed to the other materials behind and said, after he noticed Klein's look of doubt, "Go there if you wish to buy or sell extraordinary materials. After all, no one wishes to let others know what extraordinary items they are purchasing." I understand, Klein nodded. There was no need for him to go there for the time being. He headed towards the exit of the underground market, together with old Neil. How much for these elf flowers? What the elf flowers? A query suddenly entered Klein's ear. Elf flower, also an ingredient of the spectator potion. He once again saw this bespectacled man. "What's the matter?" old Neil asked curiously. "Nothing much. Although he was a quasi-member of the Nighthawks, he did not feel that all Beyonders had to be absorbed by the churches or locked up. He believed that it had to depend on the situation. Spectators definitely posed little danger to society or kingdom, and the chances of losing control on a sequence 9 were very slim. After leaving the Evil Dragon Bar, Klein and old Neil took a public carriage and left the harbor. Then they split ways at the North Borough and headed back to their respective homes. The public transport steered into Daffodil Street and stopped by the side of the road. Klein was about to get off the carriage when he saw a young lady wearing a grayish-white dress about to board the carriage. The lady had smooth black hair, her face a little round, had thin eyes and unassuming features, but paired together, she gave off the feeling that she was sweet and gentle. Like the goat did. Who's the goat in this scenario, Ramiro? Klein noticed her not because of her beauty, but because he discovered that her body was shuddering slightly. It was an unnatural shudder. "Miss, are you all right?" The young lady shook her head abruptly. "No, I'm just too tired." The people behind Klein were urging him to get off, so Klein could only leave the carriage. When he found his footing, he paid attention to the situation from before again. He pinched his glabella twice, planning to determine if the lady was indeed all right. Oh, the goat is a spoiler. Okay, never mind. Okay, God, everything's a goddamn spoiler. God, this world is a prison. I hate this place. He had the intention of sending her to the hospital if she had a serious illness that was going to act up soon. After activating his spirit vision, the colors of the aura started to surface. Klein turned around and prepared to look at the sweet and gentle young lady. End of 69. Let's go. My favorite chapter, 69. Sorry, I am a child. God damn, that's a lot of reading. Okay. Alright, we're making good time. Oh, God. Okay. Chapter 70, 249's arrival. Let's go. 249 is the thing that's supposed to help find the family notebook, right? The horses widened their pace as the wheels began rolling in tow. Despite activating his spirit vision and turning around, hoping to observe the refined and sweet lady, Klein did not have his wishes fulfilled. All his eyes reflected were brown fingers moving past him. Meanwhile, the passengers from the stop had already boarded the carriage. The carriage door was closed tightly as it gradually departed. Within the carriage, 20 to 30 people stood closely to each other, their energy fields overlapping and shielding each other. Hence, it was an explosion of colors for Klein, making it difficult to differentiate. He shook his head quietly and raised his finger to tap his glabella to deactivate his spirit vision. To him, it was simply help he could provide if he had happened to chance upon it. However, if he were to miss it and the situation was not clear, there was no point taking it to heart and delaying his own matters. Strongly agree. While bathing in the crimson moonlight, Klein strolled back on the still bustling Daffodil Street. He returned to see Melissa sitting beside the dining table. She was busy doing her homework under the bright gas lamp. Bro, this girl is always studying. She's gonna be great. She's gonna be like a politician or a great mechanic or a great engineer. Something awesome, okay? She bit at the fountain pen and frowned, appearing deep in thought. "Where's Benson?" Klein asked. Melissa looked up. She blinked out for a few seconds before saying he went around to a few boroughs today and he was covered in sweat. He's taking a relaxing bath. Why did he go around a few boroughs? I don't understand. Alright, Klein chuckled. Suddenly he realized that she was wearing a dress that he had never seen before. It was entirely beige in color and it had fashionable frills. Okay, we're just gonna leave it there. The collar and edges of her top had thin frills. Apart from that, it was a rather simple design, the type one wore as daily casual clothing. It fully accentuated the youth of a 16 or 17-year-old. "New dress?" Klein asked with a smile. It was a purchase that he and Benson insisted upon. Melissa answered in the affirmative tersely. "I just took it back from Miss Rochelle. I was thinking that since I had to wash it later, I might as well try it on first." Klein was rather puzzled when he heard that. "Yeah, me too, bud. Mrs. Rochelle, wasn't she your former neighbor?" Melissa nodded and explained in seriousness. Mrs. Rochelle is a seamstress, and she was quite lucky. She had no choice but to sew and mend clothes for others at home. She leads a pretty tough life. I know that she had pretty good skills, and the price she quoted is cheaper than the women at clothing stores. Furthermore, it's not very well tailored to my figure, so I ordered a new skirt from her. It only cost 9 sola and 5 pence and took a few days. A dress of a similar style would have cost 3 halves of a pound at Harrods department store. What a frugal girl. Sis, I know that at least half the reason is due to your pity of Miss Rochelle. Klein did not reproach Melissa for deciding things for herself. Instead, he said with a smile, "When did you go to Harrods?" "That was at Howe Street, near the Divination Club. It was somewhere where the middle class shopped." Melissa was momentarily at a loss for words. It took her a long while before she said, "It was Selena and Elizabeth. They insisted I accompany them. Actually, well, I prefer gears more. I prefer places with steam and machinery." "Yeah, it's quite nice for a girl to occasionally shop at a department store," Klein laughed. "If I'm an atheist who hates all gods and gathers people who are also atheists, am I in a cult?" "Yes, almost for sure. But part of being a cult is like there's like rules, like definitionally for what makes a cult. It has to be like that you have to disallow or make it difficult for contact for people outside of the cult and stuff. So depending on if you didn't do that, maybe not definitionally, but like you definitely be looked at as a cult for sure. After some idle talk, he briskly walked to the second floor to wash away the repulsive mixed smells from the bar. Just as he was about to enter his bedroom to get a change of clothes, he suddenly heard sounds coming from the bathroom close to the balcony. A few seconds later, Benson stepped out while drying his gradually receding hairline. Bro, you did not have to call him out like that. How was it? Did you compliment Melissa's new dress?" He shot a glance at Klein and asked with a smile. "I guess I forgot. All I did was ask where it was done." Benson chortled and shook his head. How unbecoming of an elder brother. When Melissa received the dress, she couldn't bear putting it down. After rushing to cook and wash the dishes, she immediately wore the dress and has refused to take it off ever since. Wasn't she planning on changing after she's showering? She can wash and starch the clothes while doing so. Klein asked subconsciously. Benson sighed. It's been scorching the past few days. She was in the kitchen for a long time, so I believe she would feel much better doing her homework after a shower. That's right. Klein was immediately enlightened as he gave his brother a knowing smile. So that's the kind of person you are, Melissa. There's nothing wrong with a girl caring for her appearance. There's no need to find excuses. The corners of his mouth curved up as he shook his head gently before walking into his bedroom. While he was showering, Klein faintly heard knocking downstairs. He immediately wondered, doesn't the worker who's in charge of collecting coins for the gas meter come only once every 2 weeks? Could it be Mrs. Shout from next door? That can't be. It said the lady strictly abides by the etiquette of middle-class society. She would not visit at an inappropriate time. In his puzzlement, Klein wiped his dry body. Wearing old but comfortable shirt and trousers, he came downstairs. He surveyed the area but did not notice any strangers. Was someone at the door just now? Benson, who was reading the newspaper casually, said with a smile it was Bish Mountbatten, one of the policemen in charge of Ironcross Street. He asked if we met an 18 or 19-year-old who has a rotund face. He even gave us a sketch to identify. Unfortunately, neither of us would have seen him, or we would have received a reward. What about you? Nope. Klein had a general idea of what was happening. Instigator Triss successfully escaped from Evil Dragon Bar. He had escaped somewhere close to Ironcross and Daffodil Street. And therefore, the police were making visits from door to door. And to make it clear that the operation of nabbing the instigator had completely failed, Klein did not bother himself with the situation. He had yet to begin combat training. He only had basic mastery of shooting, so to consider dealing with a natural assassin was simply using his life as a joke. That is a good call there. He would kill you, for sure. He did not sleep well that night. He kept worrying that the instigator would infiltrate their house to hide, causing another massacre. Thankfully, Daffodil Street was quiet the entire night, and the morning rays dispersed all the fog. The relaxed Klein changed into formal attire, wore his top hat, held his cane, and went all the way to Zootland Street. He greeted Roseanne at the reception hall. "Good morning, Klein," replied Roseanne happily. She suppressed her voice and said, "I heard the huge operation last night failed." "The operation to nab Triss?" asked Klein curiously. "Yes." Roseanne nodded heavily. She shot a glance at the partition and said, "Apparently an informant of the mandated Punisher discovered the instigator at the harbor. They were planning on waiting for additional Beyonders and another special operations squad from the police to arrive before beginning the operation to do the deed silently. Unfortunately, the instigator was extremely sharp. He charged out of the encirclement when he noticed something amiss, successfully escaping as a result. At such times, they need a Beyonder with such tracking abilities, such as me." Klein joked. There was no lack of trackers back then. Klein's voice suddenly sounded. Dunn Smith's voice suddenly sounded. Roseanne turned her head abruptly and saw the captain wearing his black windbreaker. He was glaring right at her with his deep pair of grey eyes while leaning against the partition's frame. She hurriedly raised her hand to cover her mouth, then she shook her head incessantly, expressing her innocence. Dunn turned his gaze to Klein and said after some thought, "There were a total of 6 Beyonders from the mandated Punisher, the Machinery Hive Mind, and us Nighthawks. We traced the injured Triss to the Ironcross Lower Street. We found some temporary residents, but the clues ended there. Be it Beyonders' methods or ordinary investigators, nothing worked." It was as though he evaporated into thin air. "Do you need my help with divination?" Klein asked. Klein shook his head. Or Dunn shook his head. My god, I'm just calling everyone Klein. Definitely, this is the last chapter. I think I'm my throat's starting to tap out already. It's been starting to tap out for like 2 chapters. Jeez. The machinery hive mind had a machinery hive mind. What the hell? He's a senior beyonder as good as old Neil. I suspect that he's already at sequence 8. I'm just unaware what the name of the corresponding potion is. The Theosophy Order's heritage to this day must have something special about it, Klein said. For the rest of the morning, he continued his mysticism curriculum, reading historical information and documents, and practiced his various techniques like always. With lunchtime almost approaching, Klein's mind began to wander. After a few minutes, he put away the documents, having heard the summoning of the stomach. At that moment, Dan Smith came into the clerk's office and said with a deep but mild manner, "Klein, follow me to Chanis Gate. Sealed artifact 249 has arrived. This subsequent operation might require your sensing of that notebook." "All right," Klein got up and replied. His thoughts became scrambled. He imagined how the sealed item would look, or the operation would be dangerous. While in this rather tense silence, he followed Dunn down the stairs and into the tunnel. After going straight into the intersection, Dunn suddenly stopped and turned his head. "Do this action together with me. Keep doing it and absolutely do not stop. Remember, absolutely do not stop. This is for your own safety." While speaking, Dunn bent his arm and followed by extending it. He repeated his actions without stopping. Klein looked at the captain's demonstration in a befuddled manner. "Has this got to do with the uniqueness of the sealed artifact?" Yes, Dunn nodded. "Repeating such actions will allow us to discover if anything happens to you immediately. Saving you in time will not result in any life-threatening dangers." Okay. Klein did not hesitate further as he began repeating the actions of bending and extending his arm. "If your arm is sore, use the other one." Sealed artifact 249 is odd. What meaning does this action have? It seems very dangerous. These thoughts flashed past Klein's mind. All right. He had too many questions on his mind, but since Chanis Gate was in sight, he had no choice but to bear it. Besides my security clearance, I'll probably not learn of the details. I can only do as I'm ordered, Klein exhaled as he followed Captain Dunn to the keeper's room outside Chanis Gate. Alrighty. That is chapter 70 all done, guys. Alright. That was pretty good. Got through it in an hour and a half. That's a solid 25% faster than previous timings. We're trying to speed run this. Jesus. Alright. And that being said, thanks everyone so much for joining. If you're new around here and you're interested, think about maybe joining our Discord. The link should be in the description and also on the channel's main page if you're interested. But once again, thank you so much for joining, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And I hope I'll see you guys next time. See ya.